And good morning to you. Welcome to K24 this morning. My name is Jeff Mota. Karibu sana to the big stories of the day. Of course, we look at our dailies this morning and look at the big stories that we have on the front pages of the papers as you get up this morning. But also, today we're paying close attention to really what's happening with Nairobi County. Which way forward for this county? Does it get a special status moving forward? Is that the solution to what has seemed to be the problem of administration of this county? We discussed that in studio with a very able panel. And of course, we love it when you chime in on the conversation and give us your thoughts and comments on the WhatsApp number on the bottom of your screen. Let's look at the front page of the People Daily as well, because really this is where the gift of that keeps on giving is at. Front page of the PD. Worst of COVID is over, experts say. Experts say the country has managed to flatten the curve. All aspects of society ready for reopening, but the effects of the virus will be here with us for some time. This is 6 months later. You can find this story on page 6 and 7 of your People Daily therein. As you look at that, of course, the numbers as of yesterday, all-time low as at that particular point. 48 cases testing positive in the last 24 hours on that particular point in time, bringing the total caseload to 36,205. You can find that story in your copy of your People Daily today. Also in the PD, police chief grilled as Sudi is charged. Uasin Gishu County Commander Johnston Ipara summoned to Vigilance House to explain lapses in arrest of Kapsaret MP. That story, of course, in your copy of your People Daily as well therein. Also on the front page, the PD. News desk's tender call pointed to resumption of classes at this particular point in time. So even as we wait to get proper direction as to how this will move forward, the Ministry of Education had their stakeholders meeting yesterday to find the proper way forward and make sure that all I's have been dotted, all T's have been crossed as children resume school. That story can be found on page 8, and what really it will mean for the students to resume classes and when that particular academic calendar resumes. Those details, of course, on page 8 of your People Daily. And the beauty about the People Daily is you can get it straight to your phone wherever you are across this country for only 10 shillings. And the number that you need is star 550 star 4 hash. Once again, the number is star 550 star 4 hash. Dial that number, get yourself a copy of your People Daily straight to your phone. You don't need any data on your phone for it. You don't need any a mobile app for that as well. All you need is a number star 550 star 4 hash. Dial that number and get yourself a copy of your People Daily. And right here on the show, I'll give you 250 shillings worth of airtime, or for just taking a screenshot of your e-paper, send your name and where you're watching from to the WhatsApp number at the bottom of your screen, and you get yourself 250 shillings worth of airtime. So take your screenshot and of course send that to me with where you're watching from, and of course your name to the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen, and I'll send you 250 shillings worth of airtime, all courtesy of Safaricom. So get cracking on that even as we get into the big stories of the day. That's what we have on the front page of the People Daily. Let's look at the front page of the Daily Nation now. Good news, back to school in no time. Education CS George Magoha shelves initial January plan and gives task force 10 days to propose an earlier date for reopening of learning institutions, with stakeholders proposing October. It could be a matter of days before children return to class. You can find that story as well in your copy of your Daily Nation on page 7. Universities and colleges allowed to recall students for on-campus learning. And of course, as the Ministry of Education had said, they were in close consultation with the Ministry of Health on the way forward. And since from the data coming from the Ministry of Health, it feels like the curve is indeed flattening at this point, so the Ministry of Education feeling more confident to reopen schools at that particular point as well. Also on the front page of the Daily Nation, and Malala wept. Who is after him? Out-tweeted, outfoxed and cornered by the state, Cleophas Malala wept like the son of Nazareth, the Daily Nation says. The Kakamega senator cried piteously before his colleagues yesterday, alleging a scheme by officers from the DCI to eliminate him. You can find that story on page 5 of your Daily Nation this morning. We move it right along to the front page of the Standard now. Inside Bob Collimore's last will. Former Safaricom boss left his vast estate in Kenya to his widow Wamboi. Appointed State of House Chief of Staff Nzioka Waita as trustee in absence of widow. Top Safaricom bosses were witnesses to the will, and you can get the details of that particular will in your copy of your Standard on page 6 as well. All the details therein. The Standard also looking at matters education and when we actually do reopen schools. KCSE, KCP candidates back to class in October. They say Class 8 and Form 4 learners set to resume school in a month, with exams scheduled for April as coronavirus cases fall and ministry pushes to rescue academic year. You can find that story as well in a copy of your Standard this morning. The details of that therein. Also on the front page of the Star now, DP Ruto plans to raid Raila's stronghold to talk Kisumu and Migori. They quote the DP here saying that, "I do not think President Kenyatta has told anyone that he wants his term extended." So where are these people getting all this information from? The DP asks. You can find that story in your copy of your Star. Of course, this was said yesterday at his current residence in Nairobi. Also on the front page of the Star, weeping Senator Malala, weeping for dear life. Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala breaks into tears before the Security Committee as he talks about his arrest by DCI officers and the fear for his life. You can get the details of that story as well in your copy of your Star this morning. So those are the headlines that we're waking up to this morning. But even as we look at those, we're also discussing Nairobi County, which way forward for the county, what needs to be done to sort out what seems to be a perennial problem with this, as they say, very sensitive county. You want your feedback, of course, on this. We have a question of the day as well that you can be weighing in on. We'll have that up on screen for you as well to answer that. We have it. What is the solution to Nairobi's perennial poor governance? It's a question that has been asked over and over and over again. What really is the problem? And more importantly, what is the solution to Nairobi's perennial poor governance? You can send us your WhatsApp message at the bottom of the screen right there as we have this discussion right here. Like I told you, a very able panel to go through this discussion as well. Welcome to K24 this morning. And welcome back. Let me get to my panel in studio, joined by Joy Mdivo. She's an advocate of the High Court and also the Executive Director at the East Africa Center for Law and Justice. Good morning, Joy.
Morning, Jeff.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Asante sana. This man has been a friend of the show, disappeared for a while, but he's back. In between that hiatus, job descriptions changed. Last I saw you were the legal advisor to Governor Sonko. Is that still, or are you government spokesman?
Jeff, I've only been maintaining social distance.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. The curve is flattening, so clearly welcome back.
The curve is flattened, actually.
Right.
So I'm back, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay,
Good
fantastic
morning.
stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Of course, this is Nairobi County Governor Mike Sonko's spokesman, Ben Mulwa. Thank you so much for making time on the show. Let's start off, of course, with this big story, of course, because from what the president said in his last address, before we get to matters Nairobi County,
Yes.
spoke about the fact that the data is coming in for the Ministry of Health. The curve looks like it's flattening, but we still need to be vigilant. But now when you look at the dailies right now, the dailies are reflecting what we're hearing on the streets. Corona imeisha.
Meisha, my friend. When don't know habari, when you see a famous politician passing outside, now have no fear. Please walk up close, squeeze in with your fellows, and just, have a good time. But I think one of the things that I think we've been trying to say on this show repeatedly is even as we're analyzing this corona thing all along, there are some important stats that were not coming across. I don't know if you remember this conversation. We're not talking about how we analyze how it's affecting us as Kenyans. How many are very serious cases? Those serious cases, why are they very serious? Are we able to manage those serious cases? Is there really use in contact tracing, extended quarantine? Is there any use in shutting things down, opening? We're asking for a more comprehensive analysis of the same rather than what happened in the last 24. One of the things also we're talking about was how we keep compiling the numbers. So from the days of Brian and Brenda, everybody who's gotten positive has been added. Our caseload is now 35,000. I'm like, no, it's not. So many people have actually recovered of corona. They're no longer on the positive list. Why are they still part of our caseload? But it's like we had this tunnel vision of just report the numbers, keep the chalk marks on the walls, and we will find out whether or not this thing is happening the way we want it to. And it took people to just sort of get tired of it all and start ignoring the government, despite the good intentions of the government. When the politicians themselves also ignored it, people decided, you know what, let's call it. It's over. Let's just get it over and done with and move on with life. We didn't even have to do it. The politicians have done it for us. Okay. So even the next time the president speaks, I mean, if he comes up with another cessation of movement, I'm sure Kenyans will look at him and just be like, please, Mr. President, let us be kind to each other. Tumemalizana hii maneno. So, but the thing to underline is, corona as a disease is here to stay. There's nowhere it's going. Only that now it's part of the diseases we are dealing with. Okay. So it's not, the novelty has worn off. Right. Ben, I'll come to you on this because even as you look at where we are in terms of the curve flattening and COVID-19 in the country,
We have moved from the Ministry of Health and how it's affecting the healthcare system to the Ministry of Education.
Yes.
And we're all adults in the room. We're willing to take certain risks to go out there and provide for, our families. But when it comes to our children, do you feel confident enough that the curve is flat? You're willing to let your daughter go back to school and play and do what she needs to do? Are we at that particular level?
To a large extent, that still remains a delicate balancing act. But to me, I think that the most important aspect of it is our kids have been out of school since March this year. Now we are in the middle of September. So I don't think there would be logical and practical ways to reorganize the entire system to get kids back to school now or next month or by November, as some of them are suggesting. We have lost actually an entire academic year. But as it is evident from the data that we are receiving, the numbers have gone down very significantly. If anything, I think yesterday we only recorded like 48 cases. Yes. So I think it is beginning to become safe. But you see, one thing that many people may not appreciate about a pandemic like this is that a singular case again can blow up the numbers to unimaginable proportions, or as a case of mismanaging one situation can really blow up the numbers. You saw some time back, I think around May, June, thereabouts, there were fears of another outbreak in China when kids had started going back to school. And that had to be cut down, and now they have been able to manage the numbers. So I think that's a subject we need to tread carefully. You know, there could be the politics. We could be seeing the politicians doing all their thing out there, but you see, kids become a bit sensitive, and I don't think anybody would want a situation where they would risk the lives of their kids just for an academic year. That can always be recovered. We have had Mwalimu Maruga going to school when he was 84 years old, and he did his KCPE. So I don't want us to really... I wouldn't want a situation whereby we can expose our children unnecessarily. And because you see, there has been a lot of gaps in terms of communicating the actual status of COVID-19 and the actual impact of COVID-19 and the actual systems we have in place in the management of COVID-19. So with that kind of flaky information, I don't think it would be wise really to expose our children. As adults, we know, as Joy is saying, we can always manage ourselves. Like, even at the moment, I can assure you, even all the others, they're cautious. Look at the way people are engaging as much as they are out there and doing their thing. Adults are cautious. But you see, kids will just be kids. You can't tell them, don't get too close to your friends, don't do this certain things. They will just interact. So I don't think it will be necessary to expose our kids.
Very quickly, Joy, before we get to Nairobi County, from the look of the headlines right now, it almost feels like we had been told January 2021, that has been reshifted. We are opening schools this year. Do you feel there's a need for that? Do we need to do this, try and get what's left of the academic calendar for 2020 before we get into 2021?
In fact, I'll start where Ben left off, that we've not been given the proper information and the proper science as regards this COVID-19 situation. So, for example, we know for a fact that the younger population is more robust and is more able to withstand COVID-19. And the problem has usually been that children are considered a vector. That if you release them to school, they themselves will survive the COVID, but they'll pass it along to the most vulnerable members of society. But rather than deal with the more vulnerable members of society, we have decided to keep the children at home. What that has done, like you've said, they've lost an entire academic year. The criticism also, again, has been that in this 1 year, what have we seen in terms of planning and preparation for learning to go back? So even if we want to salvage this year, how will it be salvaged? We know there are many private schools that are completely shut down. They do not have the wherewithal to restart business. Even if they are told reopen tomorrow, they can't. Where do those children who are in those schools, where are they going to? So there's all this planning that needs to go around it, that when people were saying let's shut down the schools, it's like they shut down the thinking on what you're going to do with education. So we've got to a place where we are thinking, oh, we didn't do exams, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. How do you make up for it? But like I've said before, do our children go to school just for the exams, or do they go to school for learning? So even we start hearing, let's open so that we can do the exams in January, I'm thinking, okay, wait, these children have not learned for a whole year. So they're just going back so that they can do an exam, so they can tick a box so that you can What's the thinking behind all this?
Okay.
And so I'm hoping, forget even about the planning of it all, the stakeholder engagement, I hope is fruitful, because I've had a certain line coming out that it's only the minister who's going to announce, it's only the CS who's going to announce. Fine, that's the official line, but can we have a reasoning and a thinking behind it? Because it cannot just be so that we tick some boxes or tick some numbers. No. Our children are in school for learning. They're not in school for a paper and a certificate. Are they ready to move to the next step logically, or are we just moving the numbers along for the sake of expedience?
Okay. And I think it's time now we shift gears, get to the big, elephant in the room, of course, speak about Nairobi County and the special status that it might be getting pretty soon. We're also joined in this conversation by former Speaker to the Nairobi County Assembly, Beatrice Elachi. Good morning, Madam Elachi.
Morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Jeff. How are you?
Welcome to the show. Thank you for making time this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get right to it. I want to start right here with Joy on this one, because from past administration, when Dr. Kidero was governor and people are saying, oh, we need something else, there's some disconnect, he's not getting what really, on the ground, what the people on the ground want, what the hustlers want, and we brought in Governor Sonko and the people are still complaining. What's your assessment of the two administrations from then up until now? Now we have a major general, calling the shots on this one. What's your assessment of these three different administrations, so to speak?
One of the things we have to admit is that Nairobi is unique. It's not a county as any other county. It is unique because, one, it is the seat of power. Two, it is the capital city. Three, it is the host of several international headquarters. Four, almost all our diplomatic corps are based in Nairobi. So there are some nuances with the management of Nairobi that must take into consideration not just its cosmopolitan nature, but its importance in terms of being a hub of so many other important responsibilities that the nation has made internationally, and also for the functioning of the rest of the country that Nairobi has to be robust about. Not just that, it's also it's a small area but very densely populated. So we've got a lot of people requiring a lot of services, unlike some of the other counties that have got lesser populations to deal with. Then there's the fact that you don't just have the population that lives here, you have those who get into the city every day and get out in the evening. So I think about 4 million live in Nairobi, but 2 million join them every day. Okay, the pre-COVID numbers. And in the evening, the 2 million go back to their surrounding counties. So all these things brings various challenges in terms of transportation, services, like I said, regular things like water, like providing enough housing. So the challenges that we have seen repeatedly bedeviling, not just since devolution, but even previous, the Nairobi City Council, and before that, even in the colonial era, was how do we manage what Nairobi is in terms of status and what it is in terms of the people and who we are serving. What we have seen is attempts, start-stop measures to try and bring Nairobi up to a certain standard, but they've been met a lot of resistance. What we are seeing even happening now, some have argued that there is a certain gentrification attempted in Nairobi to push a certain caliber of Nairobian out of the way. So in my opinion, the discussion about Nairobi has to be very soberly undertaken and has to be nuanced to the needs of the people. So how do you balance the right of somebody living in Shaurimoyo to access the CBD efficiently and quickly without pricing him out of the market, for example, when you put in the high-rise apartments? How do you deal with the issue of providing adequate security for all the diplomatic corps who are living here while balancing the slum upgrading, the slum populations around and about where they live? So all these things mean national government must work with county government, must work with anybody else to actually keep these balls in a regular juggle. Okay,
let me get Beatrice Elachi in on this particular conversation as well, because from where you stand, Madam Elachi, what really is the problem with this unique county? Because we've seen different people at the helm of the county, but yet the problems by and large remain the same. Is it a personality issue with those at the helm? Is it administration structures that aren't robust enough? Where does it go wrong? Where is the ball dropped?
I think, okay, first of all, let me just start by saying, one, Nairobi, as Joy says, is very unique, Jeff. And the uniqueness of Nairobi is that it's a capital city, yes, but also it has a surplus of Kenyans who come in the morning and leave in the evening. And therefore, you find that whatever resources you'll put in, or whoever the governor will be, will always need a lot of support from other avenues and even from the national government to make it work. Unless we think of how do we ensure those resources, when they come in, will come in sort of as a stimulus package that comes in to deal with the services that Nairobians need. And for me, when I look from Kidero's time and the CIDP that we have used up to now, I think is a CIDP that started way back in 2013. So you can imagine most of the issues that even are being done today is the same. It's the same as the national government, where we are saying, when you look at what the president is doing today, he is using the 2030 vision, which is okay. But then now, going forward, we need to ask ourselves, as we bring in all these changes, how do we deal with the different boroughs? I'll call them boroughs, like the Eastern Borough, the Western boroughs, and ensure that, because each have its unique way of life also, and a unique way of how things are done, and what they need as their services are very unique. So in the eastern side, we need to really go back in there, do a lot of services for Kenyans, because it's like we forgot it for many years. And that is why you're finding many roads are being done in Eastlands. You find you have to rethink of the housing plan in Eastlands. You have to rethink of the water issue in Eastlands. But then the water issue now cuts across. And the roads infrastructure issue cuts across. Because all over Nairobi now, especially the feeder roads, we really need a lot of infrastructure to happen. And therefore, for anyone to come and say that it will happen with one person, then we will be lying to Nairobians. I know it needs a lot of resources, and I know it needs a lot of support from different avenues, from the private sector, to come in and partner and ensure things work better for Nairobians.
Let's get to someone who has a front row seat with matters of administration as far as Nairobi County is concerned right now. Ben Mulwa, yes. You're there in the nerve center of these decisions being made, and as you hear, Nairobi, pretty cosmopolitan, pretty unique with the status it has and the setting that it has in this particular place. What's usually the problem? Is it a problem of political goodwill? Did we have to have a major general in place? Couldn't the governor at the time speak to the president at the time? Because when we heard him speaking about cartels in the county that are stopping, the development agenda moving forward, was this the only solution, to get a military man to streamline the ship?
Foremost, Jeff, I think it is important for people to appreciate that Nairobi and Kenya in general has had a very checkered history for the last 57 years since independence. You cannot discuss Nairobi exclusively since the advent of devolution, say beginning 2013, or since Governor Sonko came into office, without understanding the history of Nairobi. For a very long time, City Hall was looked at as City Hall, the Hall, H-O-L-E, where public resources used to get in and just disappear. And that was a culture that was so endemic that by the time Governor Sonko came into office, he had to make certain tough decisions in regard to how do you arrest a situation whereby we have a huge population, as Joy is pointing out, that contributes every day to, in terms of rates and taxes, but on the converse, they get zero or near nil services in return. Nairobi has had specific challenges that I can quickly point out to you. One of the biggest problems was the issue of diverting public resources. And it's not just about money, but also about public utilities to private individuals. And that's why you'll go to areas like Embakasi, as the former speaker is pointing out. And it is almost impossible to find a single public school that has been constructed for the last 30 years. Yet there is a huge population that has lived in those areas for over that period. It is almost impossible to find public health facilities that are available across the city that have matched the population growth. Yet there has been utilities allocated for such purposes. So you find that it is not really about the absence of political goodwill. And this is a problem that also cuts across the whole country. If you look at the pace at which, say, our investment in security our investment in public health and public education has grown vis-a-vis the actual population growth, you'll be very disappointed. In fact, it is, I think, last week I was listening to some statistics. You find, like, at the moment, there are nearly twice as many private secondary schools in Nairobi, more than the public ones. We have nearly 3 times the number of private primary schools to the public primary schools. This tells you that there has been a disconnect that has been running for a very long time, whereby individuals who are given the responsibility to sit at City Hall were not bothered about actually what they were supposed to be doing in those offices. And this, again, is not something that can be fixed overnight or within a year or 2 years. And that's why I think even the drafters of the Constitution espoused a situation whereby in the event there is need for partnerships, or in the event there is need for different levels of government to work together, it will be necessary to see how they can be able to pair up resources. And that's why, if you remember, I think it was October or thereabouts last year, when Governor Sonko came into office, he realized that it is something that cannot be fixed overnight. And like the former speaker has pointed out, like the issue of roads alone, by the close of the long range that we experienced since October last year up to the beginning of this year, the assessment we received from our Transport and Infrastructure Department to fix roads in Nairobi alone and the dilapidated drainage was anything between 50 and 70 billion shillings. Nairobi only receives 15 billion shillings from the national government and maybe raises another 10 billion shillings. It means even to fix the basic roads that were destroyed by the rains would take forever. So, and on the flip side, we find that the national government, CS Macharia, has a budget of close to 400 billion shillings for infrastructure. So a partnership that was espoused under Article 187 of the Constitution would enable the county tap into greater investment from the national government so that more can be achieved within a shorter period of time. So I think really even the arrival of that decision was proof or demonstration of leadership from the president and the governor that they were cognizant that there are so many things that need to be done in Nairobi within a shorter period of time that require greater investment, whereby the county as a unit on its own cannot be able to match the budgetary requirements for the same.
Okay,
yes.
We need to take a short break at this particular point in time. Of course, we want your feedback on this as well. How do we solve this administration issue of Nairobi County? You can get us on the WhatsApp number at the bottom of your screen. And don't forget, you stand the chance to walk away with 250 shillings worth of airtime, all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. What you need to do is download your copy of the PD by dialing *550*4#. Once you have it, take a screenshot of that e-paper, send it to the WhatsApp number at the bottom of your screen, and I'll send you 250 shillings worth of airtime, all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. We take a short break. We're back with more right here, talking about matters Nairobi County after the break. This is K24 This Morning.